Hello guys and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Gladys Nyambura for the new verse. So on today's topic, we are simply discussing about religion and spirituality. I believe that from the moment that we were growing up in our homesteads, by being raised by our parents or our guardians, we must have been, like a bigger percentage of us must have been led in a certain direction in order to lead like a good life and to know the good and the bad. So over the years, I've been seeing on social media mainly, and also like the people I meet, there are individuals that one are non-believers, like they've not been raised in a setup where they're being taught the ways of God and things like that. And so these people do not have that basis of what maybe spirituality is, of what religion is. And that's okay. The other bit is I've come across individuals that have been raised in a religious family or in a religious setup. However, along the way, they question the existence of God and things like that. Now, don't get me wrong, these people that probably have been raised in a setup where there are no religious beliefs, they end up like that. Like they just go on about their lives and do not like conform to like a certain societal laws or maybe like a religion and things like that, because to them there was no religion taught to them, and so to them like they're just existing, which is okay. But some of them end up in like certain religions. You could find that someone is maybe becomes a Christian or a Muslim, just anything that maybe they feel like they're comfortable and like believing. And so let's go back to these people who have grown up in an environment where they've been taught religious, they've been brought up in a religious family or setup, but along the way, they choose to not believe anymore. And I believe like how they feel is valid, because we all have a right to like express ourselves, just maybe choose the right path that we feel is good for us. But at the same time, one thing that I really find to be a bit disturbing about individuals that have come to a realization that, let me not say the like quote unquote, there's no God, is the fact that they preach the same message to other people. Now, I'm not saying that it's wrong for you to not believe. I'm just saying that, and maybe to maybe like clarify, personally, I've been in a phase in my life where I doubted the existence of God. I did like 100%. Now, I've been brought up in a very religious family where we went to church, read Bibles, like we would not miss these things, even fasting, prayer, things like that. Like I've been brought up in such a setting, and uh, like it's not even many years ago, something happened in my life, and like simply my life wasn't going the way I was expecting it to go, and like everything just completely shut down for me, to an extent that I had to like restart life all over again. And you see that moment of transitioning from the good life that you are used to, I wouldn't really call mine good, but at that point it felt better. So that transition from the life that I'm used to a life that I never imagined I would ever be at was like the hardest moment of my life, because take into consideration I've been brought up in a religious place, like setting, family, and as I'm dropping from here, coming this way, what am I doing? all I was doing was praying, and prayer. Prayer and fasting was what I was doing. And I want to tell you that in that moment of prayer and fasting, believe me, that was the hardest moment, because I would expect, or you would expect, that this God that you've been serving, you have been very religious, right? So being religious is acknowledging that there's a God and practicing the ways and believing that there's a God and like that existence is there. Now, let me tell you, in that moment of this whole transition, do you see what was standing between my high point and the lower one was prayer and fasting, and action. Prayer, fasting, faith, and action. Prayer, fasting, hope, action. Let me tell you. Do you know, the moment I got here, I was here, and the moment I got here, when I was like about 3/4 of like the remaining quarter of getting to the bottom, of hitting rock bottom, my people, what happened was I told God, you know what? If you do indeed exist, I need to see you. I need this to work. Like, I have a plan. Like, I'm doing my things strategically. I'm not doing the wrong things. Like, I promised you I would be a good person. I would do this, I would do this and that. I would not involve myself in this, in like other things, and I would live like a good life. I've kept the promise, I've kept my side of the bargain. So it's your time to keep yours. And let me tell you guys, that was the hardest moment of my life, because I gave God like a timeline. I did. I gave God an, what is it called, ultimatum. I did. I told him, you know what, if you don't, I actually used the word if you don't do this and this, and this happens, or if you allow me to hit rock bottom from today, or from that specific date I had set, just know I don't acknowledge your existence at all. And that was the last time I ever prayed. That was the last time I ever knelt down on my knees. That was the last time that I fasted. I broke my fast, and it was the last time I even communicated to God. It was the last time I ever read the Bible, and I was just going on about my businesses and waiting. I mean, I've done my part, so it's your part. You say that you provide for me, you're Jehovah Jireh. So, like, where are you right now? Like, I need you right now. I'm in crisis. So come through for me. And guys, let me tell you, I wouldn't really say it was like the best time of my life or like one of those good moments. No, it wasn't. And you know what happened? None of what I prayed for came to pass. None of it. I didn't see a miracle. I didn't see a sign. If anything, I just felt complete silence in my house. And I can remember at one point, I was just sitting on my chair and I was praying, and I had like tears well on my eyes, to an extent when I opened my eyes slightly. When I looked in front of me, I thought as if I saw the image of Jesus. That's what I thought I saw. To date, I still cannot process it. But let me tell you, my world went silent. You see that moment when you're in crisis and you just want someone to come and rescue you, nothing is going the way you want, like the people that you thought were your friends are actually the people who are watching you give up on yourself. I know how that sounds, but I got to a moment where I thought or I felt that the people around me were not giving me support at all. Instead, they were contributing to the effort I made to give up on myself. Let me tell you one thing. I gave God an ultimatum, right? I told him, you know what? If you don't do this and this to me, I won't do this. Like, that's it between us. Like, your existence, maybe I'm not there. Like, you don't. Because you say, like, I'm your child. You're my father, so, and you provide for your own. So, where are you when I need you the most? I mean, I can understand and I can take it when family and friends are not there for me at my worst. But why would you allow your child to go through hell? And so, guys, let me tell you, that time came. I hit rock bottom. I didn't see anything in my life. My world was silent. And the people I thought were my friends were actually rejoicing for my downfall. And being the strong person I am, I just continued living my life the best way I knew how to. And that's what being resilient does to you. You go through difficult times. No one understands what's happening in your life. You're just out there with a good smile. You don't understand what you're even doing, but you're just doing it anyway. And so let me just fast forward. I gave up on God. I did. And funny enough, from the moment I made that prayer and gave God an ultimatum, my Bible, I've never seen my Bible since. Of course, I know where my Bible is, but I can't seem to get a hold of it. But I know where it is. Well, I had to like get a new Bible, but at the end of the day, and the very first year, I went through that process of not believing. I was just doing things on my own, and I was so angry about God. And you know that still voice that keeps on creeping in your ears and in your mind telling you it's going to be okay. I used to hear it like the very first year. I used to hear it, but I wasn't obeying it. If anything, I was just angry for hearing it, because what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say that it's going to be okay? So it took me quite a while before I could pick up my pieces, because even like to date, I'm still recovering from the same stuff that went down. And so years passed, several years passed, and you know what? Um, I think it was about 4 years that I said I don't want God in my life and I don't believe. But there was still that still voice. It was still there. However, I didn't share this information with anyone. And also, I didn't go out there preaching that God does not exist. I never did that. I didn't do it. As hard as it is, as hard as it is, and it was for me, let me tell you, the most stupid thing you can ever do, especially if you're a believer, especially if I'll point out two things. I'll point out, especially if you're religious, and two, if you're spiritual, the worst thing that you can ever do to yourself is thinking that giving up on God is good for you. Believe me, it's not. Giving up on God or just telling Him, you know what, I don't want you in my life and I don't think you're actually there. Giving up on God is the worst mistake you can ever do. Reason being, when you give up on God, you're simply unknowingly giving up on yourself. I'm a physical being, but I also have a soul, so which is the spiritual bit of me. So which part of you do you think is the spiritual bit? Is it your what we can see or your soul? Well, if you don't believe in spirituality or religion, that's still okay. But for someone that believes in spirituality, the moment, or maybe you're religious, the moment you give up on God, that means you're giving up on yourself as an individual. And let me tell you, after like after years, I came to a realization that sometimes, and I've realized this, and that's why I really don't judge anyone when they come out and they say there's no God, or maybe they doubt the existence of God. I really don't judge because I've been there. But for me, that was a phase. And the reason I gave God an ultimatum was because things were not going the way I wanted them to go. I came from here and hit rock bottom in a very short time. And so, since my demand was not met by God, that's why I decided, you know what? It seems like you don't exist. But I did not preach to anyone that He doesn't exist. That I didn't do. Because I've been brought up in a religious family. I'm a believer, so just because my belief was interrupted by a situation does not mean that my belief is wrong. Yeah. And so, as I was saying, giving up on God is giving up on yourself. And years later, and maybe to just finish what I was saying, I think sometimes it's easier for a human being to serve God and be very hopeful when one, they're probably doing so good in life, and I mean like financially, like everything is working out, things like that. It's quite easy. I mean, like when you're in a comfortable place, your work is going on well, you're peaceful, you have food, you're in good health, or you're maintaining your health. At the end of the day, you're in a good place, right? You have some peace of mind. Sometimes it's easy for you to trust the process of believing in God. But sometimes you find that the people that have been raised in a religious setting or a spiritual, the moment they get to a point where they're doubting the existence of God, or maybe like the existence of something superior to who they really are, is when they've been exposed to a situation. For instance, I came across a story of a lady that was praying for her grandma not to die. And when the grandma died, she could not understand why God was taking her away. You see, that's a circumstance, like that's a situation. And that's why I'm just saying that it's so wrong to go out there and preach just because your belief was interrupted by a situation. It's so wrong. However, it's optional. Like out here, it's optional. So you can just choose what you want to believe in. But for me, years later, I just found myself in a situation where I was craving for that presence of God. I was craving to fast. I was craving for prayer. But I had pride because even in that moment, I didn't want to get on my knees and pray. I had so much pride because clearly I was wrong. And now I'm craving that relationship I had with God. And so I just found myself feeling so sad and pitying myself because I didn't know just how bad it was for me trying to give God an ultimatum. I was doing something wrong. And the moment I one day came back to my house and just said a prayer, I felt some sort of peace in my life. Well, at that moment, I was going through a lot. Well, like a similar situation. But the moment I just whispered a prayer, it's like the whole room, like everything just felt okay. Like I felt some sort of peace. And I would say that in the years that I wasn't believing in God, those were some of the darkest days I had of my life. And by dark, I mean really dark. Because that's where, you see, like this thing of you attract who you are. The kind of people I was attracting, at one point I just sat down and looked at my circle and I just couldn't believe the kind of people I was associating with, because on a normal day for me, well, way before the ultimatum, I would not have such people as friends. Like, I would not attract such people. And so, the moment I'm telling you, even my house felt dark. And the moment I just said a prayer and I got on my knees and I started my fasting journey. I started like my normal day to day where I was doing some praying, some fasting, and I just went back to my normal self. Of course, it didn't take a minute because all this took a whole like several years, and so undoing the whole process was to take a lot of time. It took me a long time, I'm telling you, to just get back on my feet. And let me tell you, to an extent that I had to go back to church because it had been so long. And the moment I went back to church, I told God, you know what? I know what my calling is, but we're going to do things differently this time. I told him I want to start afresh. I want to start on a discipleship class like a toddler. I want to start all over again. And I did. So I believe that we all have a choice. You can choose to be religious. You can choose to be spiritual. You can as well choose not to believe, because I mean, if you've not been brought up in a setting where any of these things is taught, there's nothing really for you to like understand. And there's a place in the Bible that says that to him that knows what to do and does it not, to him it's a sin. So in my case, I knew, but for instance, I wasn't praying, I wasn't fasting, I wasn't doing all that to like enrich my spiritual life. I wasn't doing any of that. But for me, it was just a moment of, you know what, I don't think you're there, so let's part ways. And that really cost me a lot because I wasted so many years of my life, and I would never want anyone to do that. Let me tell you one thing. To date, every single time I meet someone who says that they don't believe anymore, I always try and ask them, have you been brought up a believer? And if they say yes, I go like, okay, so at what point did you stop being a believer? And all of a sudden, it's a situation that caused this. And I'm like, you know what? Just know that God exists and it's going to be okay. However, if indeed you need to take some time off, please do, but do not lose your spirituality. Don't. Maybe because it's a phase. For me and other people, I've observed it's always a phase. And if someone needs to go through that phase, let it take 3 months, 1 year, 2 years. I mean, haven't you seen people like on their deathbed declaring what they believe in? So, however, let it not take longer. For me, it took way longer than I actually expected. Why? Because I did not have someone to tell me, like, it's a phase. But right now, I do understand. Yeah. Or maybe if you're one of those people who can share with like a therapist maybe what's going on in your life, but make sure in the process of feeling as if the spiritual realm doesn't exist, or maybe you're doubting your spirituality or your religious beliefs, in that process, do not involve yourself with people that don't believe. Because I mean, it's going to get worse. And I believe that for me, the reason I took quite a longer period of time to like come back to my senses was because I was always hanging around people that didn't believe. And it's just so sad because at the end of the day, one, salvation, religion, spirituality is very personal. Like, it's a personal decision you have to make. No one, even if they preach to you 1,000,000 times, no one can convince you to do the things that you don't want to do. It won't even make sense when people are trying to tell you this is right, this is wrong. No, it will not make sense. It's only going to take you as an individual to go back to your roots and find out why you believe. So the reason I don't judge anyone is because all these decisions, matters of the heart, spiritualism, all these things are very personal to each of us. So thank you guys.